And good morning, everybody. Good morning. Okay, before anybody starts yelling at me, let me double check the microphone. Yep, correct mic. Guys, let me start here. It's not going to be the best show this morning. I'm sorry. Y'all are lucky you get me this morning. I had a bit of a day yesterday, and I did not make it to the rack until almost midnight last night, which for me, guys, I mean, I usually sleep from about 10 to 2. Right? That's my regular nighttime routine. I usually hit the bed, on the later side of between 9 and 10 and wake up on the earlier side of between 2 and 3. Right? No alarm, just hypervigilance, and I'm up. I had a day yesterday. Okay. It is Firearms Friday, and I want to bring you some firearms news. First, I'm going to hit this real quick so that we've got just a little something to chuckle about. Okay. Everything is still all about the Charlie Kirk assassination right now. And I ain't going to lie, I don't want to talk about it anymore. But it is still going to be a part of the conversation for some time. So I'm going to talk about this a little bit. Then I'm going to tell you guys a story about having a long day yesterday. Patrick says, do not kowtow. Do not kowtow. That's for those of you who are uninitiated, Patrick is making a reference to the little crabs on my shirt here, which these guys are not an official sponsor yet. I would cut a fool to get there. Okay, so thank you, Patrick. Do not kowtow. Let me tell you about this shirt. So I kind of told this story before, but a few months ago, my in-laws were in town. They live up in Washington State, and my father-in-law Paul was surprised about the way gun laws work here. So Paul has lived up there most of his life, and he's not like a radical leftist or anything, but he's just lived in a different regulatory environment relative to firearms, and not been a big gun guy. He hasn't kept guns, and he's not a gun guy. He has several now that his father gave him, and they're planning on moving here, hopefully toward the end of next year, sometime next year. And he was concerned about what paperwork do I have to do? What license do I, how do I move my guns from Washington State to somewhere in Georgia? And I told him, I mean, that's too easy. You put them in a box and go. Right? Once you get to, as far as transporting them, you should be fine as long as you don't, stop in New York, New Jersey, or California. You'd be fine. Just go. Right? Just get them down here. And then he was asking about going out to the firing range or something to, what all do we need to do if we want to, we have to get a license or this, that, and the other thing to go to the range and shoot some guns. Like, no, man, I'll pull one off my hip. We could do some shooting in the backyard. I mean, this isn't just Georgia, son. This is still America. And in fact, in this particular part of America, in this particular part of Georgia, it is the sovereign state of Lowry, where the Constitution fucking matters. And I mean, eat a bullet matters. Come and take them. Come and take it. Just, bring enough bodies. And so we had a good time in that conversation. Now remember, all that started me talking about this shirt. So while he was here and we had those conversations, we're having fun talking about guns and all that good stuff, and kind of seeing if we couldn't raise his eyebrows up into his hairline about how easy it is to just walk out in the backyard and shoot. Right? As Sergeant Major joins us, the old man has a habit of sitting on his back porch early in the morning with a cup of coffee, listening to this show right here on his phone, sitting on the back porch, drinking a cup of coffee on his hobby farm. And more than once, we've been doing this show and he's left a comment and said, "Hey, I got one." And what he means is sitting on the back porch, drinking his coffee, listening to the show, Bambi has wandered into the yard. And when we say into the yard, right, that can be a 300-meter shot. And the old Smudge will sling up his 300 Win Mag and just put a round in it. One morning while we were on the show, he dropped a comment because he was sitting there drinking his coffee and put a round in a buck and then in another one. There were 2 deer at the other side of the property, right? This is further away than Charlie Kirk had been. And he went and loaded up both our freezers for a hot minute. Oh, yeah, baby. Be controversial. No, there's no NFA items in that collection. So all that fun, all that chit-chatting, and it just happened that a friend of the show, Military Mike, was sponsoring and running a gun show for the I almost said the VFW, not the Veterans of Foreign Wars, the American Legion. And so, they've got a pretty decent sized facility. And I went, Tim said, "Man, I'm glad you're watching this morning, Tim." I wish I had that photo handy. I'd show the audience because it was hilarious. That's another story. Tim fired Dad's 300 Win Mag. That was his first time putting his hands on a meaty manly rifle, and it surprised him. It caught him in the eyeball, squished his glasses, and do you actually, Tim? Do you actually have scars from that cut? Oh, but yeah, that shit happens. So we took Paul to the gun show. And at that gun show, I met the rep that was selling these shirts, and of course, I was wearing one of my classic, sexy, tailored, bespoke, handmade, custom Hawaiian shirts that I wear. And I wear Hawaiian shirts for the same reason most old veterans wear Hawaiian shirts, because they drop down over the top of your pants. It makes it easy to conceal carry a firearm. You see an old man in a Hawaiian shirt, that's not the one you want to mug. He's ready for you, right? And these guys were selling these, and they're about $50 a piece. So, not terribly expensive, reasonable deal. And they all come with, there's a tag on every one of them with the little icon. This one being a crab holding a Glock, right? Right. This is Retro Rifle. That's retro-rifle.com or at Retro Rifle on X and the like. So you can go check them out. Like I said, they're not a sponsor of the show yet. These shirts don't just look great. They're comfy. They're super comfy. And a lot of them, not all of their shirts, but a bunch of their shirts are firearms themed. And I thought, hey, that'd be badass. I can wear my regular Hawaiian shirts, most of the time on the show, the way I always have, and then I can have these special ones for Firearms Friday, and that'll kind of be fun. Okay, so I've just spent about a little better than 10 minutes telling that story, which hey, Tim says watch it. He's watching on Rumble, but he can't comment there. When you can comment, Tim, I guarantee, I promise you this, the first time I see you comment on Rumble, I will give away a free Rumble Premium membership. Now, that's not a promise that you get it. When I give away the free memberships, they go at random. But every time I see you comment on Rumble, I'll give away a free one. Let me take that back. Once each day I see you comment on Rumble, Tim, I'll give away at least one free random premium membership to Rumble Premium until you've got yours. So that fun story. And yeah, guys, I'm phoning it in this morning, frankly, because I had a long night last night and I just didn't get show prep done. I had a long night. I overslept this morning. Basically I started a new gig and I ran into some hiccups with this survey, this drone survey gig that I picked up, and just new guy learning, a couple of growing pains, learning curve, couple of small mistakes, and I found myself in the field until like 8:30 last night, and the field happened to be over 100 miles away, and I was still hungry. So, yeah. Patrick says a favorite sign I've seen outside a house. Due to the rising cost of ammunition, we are no longer able to provide warning shots. B, I saw a headline about that. Damn it, y'all are commenting too fast. Okay, so here's what's happening now is y'all are making comments too fast, and when I go to click on one, the thread has just moved, and I'm clicking on the wrong comment. There we go. Which is not to say that you should stop. Comment. Look, go ahead and drop your comments. I see a few dozen people watching live right now, and I only see about a quarter of that actually making comments. So you guys out there that are watching live, if you can, go ahead and leave a comment. Tomorrow is Saturday. We'll be doing the deep dive tomorrow night, and I'd be more than happy to give away a free month of premium, so that some of you guys can get in and watch the behind the paywall member exclusive premium deep dive content tomorrow night. We're going to be going in light of. I don't want to have to keep talking about Charlie Kirk, but it is not the case merely that Charlie Kirk was killed. It is the case that there's a lot more to it than that because of the media landscape and the fallout from that. And so tomorrow we're going to be discussing the academic works of John Kenneth Galbraith, who was a leftist. I mean, don't get it twisted. We'll be talking about John Kenneth Galbraith, specifically his work, The Anatomy of Power, in which he lays out the three different types of power: condign power, conditioned power, and compensatory power. So condign, that's like a condign punishment. One has power by threatening people, do it or I'll fucking spank you. Compensatory, hey, do a good job, get paid. And then conditioned power, which is a much more esoteric, nebulous concept. Donald Trump certainly has it. Men of the cloth typically have it. A lot of different types of political figures have it, but it's best kind of summarized as the cult of personality, the power of persuasion. So we'll be talking about that. Kierkegaard's leveling process and how that relates to communism, the rise of communism equaling the rise of political violence, and Nietzsche's perspective on the will to power connected to the popular Nietzschean adage that God is dead and we have killed him, and what the critique of which that statement is a part was really about. And all that has to do with the political violence of this country that's happening in this country right now being the direct result of essentially the existence of communism and the cancer that is communism, socialism, Marxism, and how that has created that kind of violence. So that'll be the deep dive tomorrow night, and I think it's going to be a pretty good show. I think it's going to be a pretty intense show. But yeah, that's kind of where we're at. So, like I said, the Charlie Kirk thing, just a little taste of why it matters that we keep discussing. Not so much the assassination itself, but the fallout. Take a look at this from Ed Krasenstein from about this time yesterday. He says, fact check. Adolf Hitler had Antifa arrested. Yeah, he did. He had members of the original anti-fascist action arrested as one of the very first actions he made after taking power in 1933. It was the beginning of the Nazi regime. Yeah, that's true. That is in fact true. Ed, Hitler also provided medical health care for the Germans. Right? Single payer, socialized medicine. He built his platform speaking to homeless people in soup kitchens. He built the Autobahn. He believed in a strong central government that collected the majority of everyone's wages and taxes to be redistributed among the people. So what I'm really saying, Ed, let's not make any mistakes here. This will be part of the conversation tomorrow night as we talk about how Democrats aren't really a political entity anymore. They're more the faith militant of a corrupt and satanic philosophical or political religion. The Antifa were communists. Period. Plain and simple. Right? Where is it? I got this one from Brooklyn Dad Defiant earlier today, I think it was. Yeah. So Brooklyn Dad Defiant shared this image of landing at the beach, landing at Normandy, right? He says, I don't know what morons need to hear this, but these guys were Antifa, every last one of them. They fought fascists. No, you psychotic crackhead. But you know what? In fairness, I would expect this level of historic illiteracy from this guy who famously sold his children's Christmas presents to buy drugs. Right? And hey, you know what? I wrote him a reply. There you go. Fact check, false. These men were American heroes. Just like the war fighters and Republicans today, they sought to fight Nazis, fascists, and communists like yourself. Antifa is now and always was a communist organization. Just because two organizations hate each other doesn't mean they don't hate you. Stop lying, commie. And I'm not playing around about it. I brought receipts. Introduction, Antifa, an abbreviation of the anti-fascism. And even this article goes to try and minimize the institution, but here it is. Antifa has its roots in Germany, where the Communist Party formed Antifascista Action, sometimes abbreviated as Antifa, in 1932 as a response to fascism and the rising Nazi Party. And even this is a little spurious. I'm gonna have to double check on that because I want to say the Nazis came before the fascists. Because that's a mistake that's often people talk about fascism like they use the word fascism like they're talking about conservatism or liberalism. The fascists were a specific party in Italy. Let me see what does ChatGPT say? What came first? I want to say that the Nazis were first and then the fascists. But they're both Marxists. Okay. Mussolini founded the Fasci di Combattimento in 1919, which became the National Fascist Party in 1921. Right? So they use the word fascist as if it's the same as conservative or liberal, instead of as if it's the same as Republican or Democrat, right? Just like Nazi, right? Nazi was a political party, not explicitly a political philosophy. But I mean, who are we kidding? The left has one thing in spades. It has crazy people. You know, we've looked at the articles and covered the studies in the past few weeks. Recent studies have been very, very clear that among women, especially, right, among liberals, Democrats, people who identify as on the left, there's a very high corollary with diagnoses of mental illness. Among women who vote and who self-identify as left or extreme left or far left, etc., among women who identify as left-leaning politically, the incident is over half. It's something like 67% of liberal Democrat women have a not they seem crazy. No. Have a diagnosed mental illness for which they are being treated. So that, and this is going to be part of what we talk about tomorrow night. I don't want to spoil too much, but I mean, we're doing a deep dive tomorrow night. It'll at least be 2 hours. So there will be plenty. And this is why the conversation around the fallout after the passing of Charlie Kirk is important, and why it's important to call out shitburgers like these. The Democrats understand this. The Democrat Party, yes, the elected officials understand this. They've been signaling it for years. They argued that Donald Trump was responsible for the protest on January 6th because he used violent rhetoric, because he incited violence. But just a few days ago, Nancy Pelosi came out and said, listen, we can't be held responsible, and our speech can't be held responsible for something a crazy person does in murdering Charlie Kirk. Well, I'm sorry, bitch, you can't have it both ways. You know what? I got one for you. How about this? I'll concede the point. Donald Trump is responsible for January 6th. Let's lock him up for the rest of his life. Now do every other elected official. You will have some Republicans remaining after that. You will not have Democrats because they understand their audience. And this is what we've been talking about off and on all week. The Democrats understand their audience. Their voter base is a bunch of crazy people. The Democrat elected officials want you personally to be murdered in the street. Not just high-profile pundits, public figures like Charlie Kirk. You personally. They want you to be shot in the head, shot in the neck, shot in the chest. They want you to be murdered. And they know that the only thing they have to do to make that happen is they have to give their psychopaths permission to do it. That's where we're at today. So instead of the safety brief today, and this is a safety brief, sort of, I'm going to point you guys to Steven Crowder and go. Steven Crowder has made a couple of comments recently. He's been criticized for them, and he's doubled down on them. And I wholeheartedly and entirely agree. Steven Crowder, right after the assassination, he did a show where at the open, he said, okay, guys, we're starting live on YouTube. He did the thing I do every Saturday night. He started on YouTube and X and everywhere else and did like a half hour there and then shut it down to Rumble only. But in that first bit where he was doing the intro, he explained we're live on everything because the message needs to get everywhere. Everybody needs to hear it. But we're going to shut it down and go to Rumble only because I'm not going to advocate for violence. I'm quoting here. I'm not going to advocate for violence. But I'm going to get fucking close. Right? And then later he explained, I am advocating for violence. I am explicitly advocating for violence. But specifically, lawful violence in self-defense. Because what we're seeing, like I said, the Democrats know they've got all the crazies, and all they have to do to get a bunch of you murdered is to give their crazies permission to commit murder. And every time you see one of these assholes say, well, okay, the Charlie Kirk assassination was a tragedy, but he was a Nazi, he was a racist, he was a bigot, he was a transphobe, he was. Do you know what but? You know what comes after a but? When you say that something was awful, but look, boss, I know I'm a half hour late, but traffic was real bad, man. I mean, I'm sorry, man. Traffic was just real bad. Yeah, it's an excuse. It was a tragedy that Charlie Kirk died, but he was a bigot. He was a racist. He was a homophobe. So it's okay. It's cool. It's fine. It's acceptable. It's excused. They know that all they have to do is give you an excuse, and you'll go commit murders. Yeah, Alex, I haven't gotten to watch your show from last night yet. I see you came in a little later. I don't know if you caught my little sob story about having a long fucking day yesterday, but I want to hear what you had to say about it. And I think you and I are going to agree on a lot. I think we're going to butt heads on Trump's rhetoric, but we'll get to that conversation later. I can't wait to I can't wait to have a conversation with you about it. But Crowder goes on to say, basically what he's advocating for is the strategic implementation of lawfully justifiable, so we're talking about self-defense, defense of others, but merciless violence. Because it's not just that the left is cranking up the heat and giving their psychopaths permission to go and commit murders. They're going out of their way to defend them, right? Never forget, Kamala Harris raised money for bail funds for the guys that burned down the cities, lit St. John's Church on fire, smashed through the barricades trying to get into the White House, forcing Donald Trump into the bunker. Murdered people for wearing MAGA hats during the Summer of Love, right? What was his name? Officer Dorn, right? He wasn't even a MAGA guy necessarily. He was a retired black cop. They just fucking shot him. And so when Crowder says what he's looking for is lawful self-defense, the employment of merciless violence and lawful self-defense, he went on Pierce Morgan, and they had was it Joe Walsh, I think, and Crowder asked him the question, and he asked the question more esoterically on the show as well, but he asked him the question, okay, let's say you're a person in the crowd, right? Forget about a high-powered rifle. You know, that's tough, right? We've already talked about how there was a lot of professionalism around the way that Charlie Kirk was shot. And that's as just an average citizen, you're not likely to be able to step in on that. But let's say the next Charlie Kirk is up on the stage and you're in the crowd. You're just a member of the audience, right? Excuse me. And somebody right next to you has got that big gulp, and you see them winding up to throw it. Well, to throw it at the stage. Well, as Crowder puts it, you don't know what's in that milkshake. It might be strawberry. It might be chocolate, strawberry, vanilla, acid, or concrete. And that's why it's important. That's why this piece of it matters, right? This has been a common tactic of these Democrat terrorists to throw styrofoam cups, right? Because you can walk around carrying one. You walk around with a cup in your hand, take your little drink out of the straw, right? You don't actually have to drink. You know, somebody sees you put it to your lips and they'll make assumptions, right? Walk around with your little styrofoam cup in your hand. Nobody thinks anything of it, except it's got a concrete block in it, or it's full of nails, or it's full of battery acid. This isn't some crazy hypothetical. This is a tactic that we've seen used by Antifa. So Crowder asked the question, you know, you're in the crowd and the guy next to you is winding up to throw that cup at the stage. Do you stop him? Do you hurt him? And Walsh kind of mush-mouthed, and then he finally said, yeah, I'd try to stop him. He would not, however, commit to, I'd hurt him. Well, let me be clear about that. If I'm in that situation, and fair play, right? Steven Crowder's a big, strong guy, right? He's like, what is he, like 6'1", maybe 210, right? He might be able to put a little hurt on somebody, right? You're not all of you are a big, strong man, young, fit man, health, whatever. Not all of you are you're not all 6.5 foot tall, 300 pounds, right? Not all of you have experience in the in jujitsu, you know, the graceful art of folding laundry with people in it, right? It's not a capability that everybody owns. You can all wear a fucking gun, though. And I highly recommend just stay away from events where you're not allowed to wear a firearm. And I do and don't want to back that back a little bit because there are a lot of things like a TPS, a TPUSA type of event that is worth attending. Support the movement, but I try not to go anywhere that I have to be disarmed. I don't even like to go shopping at the commissary because I can't wear my pistol on base. But if you've got the capability, it is not enough to stop them from doing the harm. TPS report says no guns on campus. That is not necessarily the case. State of Georgia, you're good to go. There are certain very specific limited locations on campus where you can't wear a firearm. So unless this is a gross oversimplification, but generally speaking, if there's no magnetometer, in Georgia, you should be good to go. Except for the post office, because the post office still doesn't recognize the Second Amendment. And I don't know why we're not all signed on to a class action lawsuit against the federal government for having post offices. I didn't stutter. All right. So be safe, stay calm, and stay strapped or get clapped, guys. I love you. Make sure, it's your Visa MasterCard. Don't leave home without it. Y'all be safe out there. We love you, and we will see you tomorrow evening. Oh, where's my fucking... See, I told you, I'm just phoning it in. All the text. There it is. Alex, 56 years old, is old enough to start bringing in some of that man strength. You need to go buy a keg of beer and just do squats with it in the yard. You'll be all right, brother.